How's it going, YouTube? It's PM Designs. Thanks for watching the video. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the exposure compensation dial. What is it? What does it do? Why do I need it? Why should I use it? So, if you watched my last video when I went to Biloxi, Mississippi, I was taking some night exposure, long exposure shots, getting the light trails of the cars and stuff. If you haven't seen the video, I highly recommend you go watch it. It's a little bit lengthy, but definitely worth the watch. I talk about the A7 and the A6000 in that video. So while I was out there, getting to the point of this video, while I was out there, I was taking some long exposure shots, and I was shooting in aperture priority mode. That way I have the depth of field that I want, and I'm shooting at the lower ISO that I want. So I'm getting long exposure, I'm capturing those light trails, and according to my camera and what a proper exposure was, when I looked at the image, I felt that it was overexposed, and I wanted to bring up those levels in post and keep the highlights from being blown out. So I ended up going over to manual mode and dialing my shutter speed to get the exposure that I wanted, which was underexposing about a stop and a half. Later on, when I got back, I was going through all my images and I was doing some updates on my cameras because, as you know, newer cameras, you have firmware that needs to be updated to unlock newer features that they've come up with and capabilities that they've put into the cameras. If you going a little bit about the Sony line, they have a lot of cool applications that you can download for the camera. Some cost a little bit, some are free, but they unlock different potential into the camera. One that especially, we're talking a little bit about long exposure photography, is the touchless shutter app, and that basically allows you to utilize the sensor that's on the camera built in. That when you raise the camera up to your eye, it switches up to the EVF, or electronic viewfinder, from the display on the back of the screen, and allows you to utilize that sensor to trigger the camera to take an exposure. Now, when I went to update, that was when I realized that I was looking at it, I looked at the dial, I'm like, wait a minute, I could have been using that. So your exposure compensation allows you to overexpose or underexpose an image by a certain amount, and usually, as you can see on the one that's on here, which this is the dial I'm referring to, mine gives me a third of a stop increments from anywhere from, proper exposure to +3 stops overexposed to -3 stops underexposed. So what I could have done is, instead of having to switch my camera into manual mode from aperture priority that I was shooting in, was I could have kept it in aperture priority mode, so I have the depth of field and the ISO control that I want, but use that exposure comp dial to tell it to go ahead and underexpose by about a stop and a third, or whatever your preferences are, and instead of doing what I ended up doing when I was out there, which was putting in a manual, which whenever I would recompose to photograph something else, I needed to basically tell the camera, go in there and adjust my exposure again, or my shutter speed, to get the exposure to what I wanted. So it would have been just one thing that I would have maintained the creative control that I wanted, but been able to just recompose a shot, make sure I'm focused, take the shot, and not saying it would have made life easier, because really having to adjust the shutter speed, especially on the mirrorless cameras where you can pretty much see what you're going to get, it's super simple. So go ahead and next time you mess with your camera, take a look. If you have the dial on there, go ahead and try it out, see what differences it gives you in your image, see if it's a useful tool to you. If you don't have a dedicated control on your camera, like some of the entry-level cameras don't typically have, you can probably access it in a menu setting, or you may have a button that you can assign on the back of the camera to go to that setting, much like your ISO is, unless of course you have a dedicated wheel for that. But as I said, lower-end cameras probably don't have that option on there. But go ahead and look for it, read through your manual. If you can't figure it out or can't find a way to control it, you may be able to call the camera manufacturer and ask them. You may or may not have that feature built into your camera, but if you have it, use it. It's another great creative tool that's in cameras these days. So have a good one, and until next time, get out there and go take some pictures. Thanks for watching.